It's time for 2FAST2FILMS with award-winning movie critics Mike Sargent and Jackson Murphy. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Are you thinking of staying in and watching a new movie this weekend? Well, Jackson Murphy and Mike Sargent here for the 2FAST2FILMS podcast. We're reviewing two new movies that you can watch at home. First up from Lionsgate on VOD is Silk Road.
Silk Road is a story that's been told a number of times. It's interesting in that it's sort of the anti-American dream. In 2010, an Austin resident named Ross Ulbricht, who's played by Rick Robinson, wanted to explore what he considered the eroding liberties facing Americans, and he created Silk Road. Essentially, it's a darknet website where you could buy anything. The film focuses on drugs, but Silk Road actually sold quite a bit more than that. The film bounces between Ross and an ex-DEA agent named Rick, played by Jason Clarke. Jason Clarke plays the kind of agent we've seen in a million movies. He's just out of rehab. His marriage is on the rocks. He's trying to be a good dad. And then he's faced with, in many ways, making the kind of, let's just say, morally questionable decisions that Ross is making.
Jason Clarke gives the best performance of his career as Rick Bowden. Such an interesting character, and the way he delivers the dialogue and his mannerisms and with the way he interacts with other characters, really fascinating and a deep, emotional, powerful performance. One of my favorites of the year so far, and I think this whole movie is fascinating. What a story, and I love the parallels we get between Ross and Rick, and that they only intersect in very particular moments and ways that are really fun. There's some dark humor in this. The weakest element is the relationship stuff. Ross has a girlfriend who's played by Alexandra Shipp, and it's a reunion for them. Nick Robinson and Alexandra Shipp, they were in Love, Simon a few years ago. That's the weakest and most predictable element. Otherwise, just sit back and go for this ride. Silk Road, it is a very good film.
I will agree with you in that it's very, very fascinating. I did not know that much about Silk Road. I know about a number of films have been made. I did think certain things were interesting. It starts to veer, I think, into cliche territory. I think that Jason Clarke's performance elevates a character that is in some ways underwritten because they throw stuff you've seen a million times before in there, and it makes you wonder just how much of this was real and just how much of this was movie convention.
You do, but Paul Walter Hauser as well. He's had a lot of these smaller roles in movies over the last several months and couple years. Also great in Richard Jewell, and he's got a nice supporting role in this as well. Really interesting film, and one that I think if you're not familiar with the Rolling Stone article that it's based on, don't read too much into that because you'll want to experience all of the surprises.
The next film has some surprises in many ways. It's called FLORA and Ulysses.
This is based on a novel from Kate DeCimillo, one of the great writers of our time, and this film is on Disney+. Flora is 10 years old, and she loves comic books and superheroes, loves talking to her dad about all of that. And one day, there's this squirrel in her yard named Ulysses, and Ulysses gets sucked into a vacuum and suddenly gets superhero powers. And this is great for Flora because her parents are currently separated, and Ulysses is not only a distraction, but it encourages her and gives her meaning and purpose at this time. And the dialogue and the narration from the Flora character is excellent, and there's a lot of clever commentary through that and throughout the movie.
Well, I agree with you. The movie definitely has clever commentary, and I think Matilda Lawler, who plays the main character, is enormously endearing. And Kate DeCimillo did Because of Winn-Dixie and The Tale of Despereaux, both I would call animal-centric films. This really works. It's fun, and it's jam-packed with amazing performers. It's got Anna Deavere Smith, Alyson Hannigan is the mother, and Ben Schwartz plays the dad, is the comic book writer who can't sell any of his ideas. I think this movie is elevated by its sense of wonder that you have when you're a 10-year-old and by terrific performances.
Bobby Moynihan's great in a couple scenes as well, and you're right about Matilda Lawler, a star-making role here. She's going to be a superstar. I just don't think this movie needed to be so over the top and so silly and go down this ridiculous, wacky, zany, crazy Disney Channel level path. It didn't need to go that extreme. Maybe a little bit. It's a little too over the top for me, but still families will enjoy it enough. Even though there's also a little bit of violence and peril that I question in a Disney movie and a PG-rated movie, but it is fun. The cast makes it work, and the story makes it work once it for elements when it doesn't go too far down the wacky path.
Yes, and let's just hope no kids decide to try and keep a squirrel as a pet.
It could turn out like this, but turn out very memorable as well. So we definitely both like Silk Road, highly recommend that. And we both like Flora and Ulysses as well. Two completely different movies for completely different audiences, but worth your time.
Worth your time, not great, but both good. And that was very fast.
Sadly, we've reached the finish line for this episode. Keep up with the show at 2FAST2FILMS.com. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And follow Jackson and Mike on Twitter and Instagram.